factory life far from home leaves China's migrant worker vulnerable. Shenzhen, China, CNN. In a brightly lit Shenzhen restaurant, 21-year-old Zheng Lingqing, a migrant worker from the island province of Xinjiang, describes his life in the southern Chinese city as Bukaxin. He says his work hours are too long, his salary are too low, and he has no personal life. I feel lonely in this big city, he says. For the past 3 years, Zheng has been fixing photocopy machines at various factories in China's manufacturing heartland. His monthly salary of 3,050 to 4,050 yuan, $580 to $740, depending on overtime, is higher than the average wage, but only because his job requires more risk. The ink has toxic fumes. Yet, he worries about losing a job he loves. In fact, he says he feels constantly anxious, a state of mind made clear by the habit of crackling his cunicles and jiggling his leg as he talks. If he were able to speak to a psychologist, it's possible he would be diagnosed as suffering from anxiety disorder, a common problem among migrant workers, according to professional Zheng Yu at Sun Yat-sen University in Jingzhou. Their mental health is far more worrying than we originally thought, he said. Emotional burden. Zheng and his colleagues interviewed 807 migrant workers in the Shenzhen area and had in-depth conversations with 60 of them. Their research suggested that 58.5% of those surveyed suffered from depression, 70% from anxiety, and 4.6% had considered the idea of suicide. His team found that the majority of those surveyed, half of whom were under 30, bore a heavy financial and emotional burden as they leave behind aging parents or young children. They feel guilty for being unable to care for them and at the same time feel pressure to provide for their families. Zheng said he first noticed this issue 5 years ago when he conducted research on the mental health of sex workers in the region, most of whom work at factories before turning to prostitution. In 2010, the issue made international headlines after a spate of worker suicide at Foxconn, a large electronic manufacturer that assembles many Apple products, making the professor determined to find out the root causes of the workers' mental health problems. More migrant workers seek a life back home. Loneliness and a sense of isolation were reported to be among the reasons that drove the workers to jump the factory and dormitory roofs. Though the focus of Zheng's research was in the southern province of Guangdong, the mental health of migrants is likely to be similar and elsewhere in the country. Some 260 million Chinese farmers have left their village and to work in cities, according to China Labor Bulletin. Despite their contribution to China's economic miracle, the social status of these migrant workers remains low. It's not a family unique to China. Throughout the world, research suggests that migrant workers are more likely to experience mental illness than those who stay behind adjust to a new environment without their families and social support groups. In China's case, the hukou system or household registration system that divides the population into two distinct categories of the urban and the rural makes things harder for the migrants who don't enjoy the same access to health care and education or other city residents. They are often discriminated against in terms of salary or treatment. Better educated and internet savvy, younger migrants like John suffer more from this urban, rural divide than their elders. John's parents left home with one goal in mind: make money in the city and then returning home. Told who eats one meat. John, however, aspires to become a true urbanite and wants to be an interior designer. He tries to study the subject on his own, but struggles to find time to do so. His parents, who work in Shenzhen as a small-time trader and domestic helper, laugh at his effort, calling him a toad who dreamed of eating swan meat. The glaring gap between what they desire and the harsh reality intensified the anxiety and depression from some young workers, said Zheng. Many workers' lives are confined to production lines and dormitories. They may change jobs, indeed they change more frequently than their parents did, but their chances of climbing up to the next level to become, say, a designer are limited. Having grown up with his grandparents in his hometown in Xinjiang, John doesn't have much to say to his parents. He is aware that he should consider himself lucky to have his family around, but he nevertheless feels lonely in Shenzhen. He has only a few friends here, all young migrants for Shenzhen. Constrained by time, money, and changing shifts, they are unable to meet often. One day he hoped to settle in Chengdu, the capital of his province, where he spent 2 happy years studying at a technology college. The government recently announced plans to relax the control over hukou system in a bid to narrow the gap between rural and urban areas and to help migrants assimilate better into the city life. But the process will be a long and slow one. We just have to pay more attention to mental diseases and as they can lead to suicide, said Jen. He recommends compulsory mental health testing in the workplace and a practice he calls positive psychological intervention, setting up hotline and counseling service and providing workers with more opportunities to socialize. It is a big question when, if at all, Professor Jones' idea may be turned into reality. For young John and millions like him, the struggle is likely to continue.